Joined here by Danny West from 24/7 Sports, covering the Razorbacks at hogsports.com, recruiting specialist, but so much more. Danny, how's things? It's been a little more than a month since we spoke with you. How you been since?
Been good, buddy. I appreciate you having me back on. Hope everything's going well your way.
It is going well, going really well right now. Feeling good about the direction that Arkansas baseball has since the draft is nearing its end. But I wanted to get into football here with you. And since we last spoke, Danny, the commitment list for 2022 is up to 15. I think 5 recruits have committed verbally to Arkansas since we last had you on the show. And they're from 5 different states, you know. And I know that Coach Pittman has done a really good job, I think, of quote unquote trying to build that fence around the state of Arkansas, but still casting a wide net, still getting players out of Georgia. You get this tight end coming out of Georgia and Wisconsin, Tennessee, Ohio. I mean, you get kids coming in from Michigan. They're coming in from everywhere.
It's crazy, right? I mean, I get so many questions about, hey, what's going on in Texas? Well, if you're picking them up in Georgia, you know, it's pretty much an even trade, in my opinion. I think those 2 states are really similar, you know, in terms of quantity and caliber of player that you get. So I understand what they're trying to do in Georgia with, you know, some of Coach Pittman's connections down there and so many others. I mean, you think about Jim Smith, running backs coach. He's kind of a legend down there in Atlanta. So I understand that. Coach Fountain obviously has been there before. Really strong ties to that area. But, yeah, man, you know that they've kind of going on a little bit of a run here as of late. Currently in a dead period, so no recruits on campus until the final week of this month. So the 24th through the 31st will allow them to, if they want to, bring back, you know, some unofficial visitors if they so choose. And my understanding is July 31st, I believe, is a Saturday. They do plan to, you know, have some sort of event. I think you'll look around college football that day and probably see a lot of teams doing a, you know, a barbecue type, a cookout type deal for recruits. So, you know, while it is a dead period, you nailed it there. It's kind of been busy as of late, and we'll see how well, you know, I think so much of rankings will come down to how well they're able to finish this thing out. They've got 15 guys, but those last 10 spots will ultimately, in my opinion, determine exactly where they fall.
Yeah, Danny, recruiting is one of those seasons that it never ends. It goes year-round, even when you have dead periods like this. There's always news breaking, guys making decisions, so it never slows down. What is, now that we're in the first, I guess, true recruitment year for Sam Pittman, without being able to have guys on campus, what's the biggest difference you've noticed between Sam Pittman's method of recruiting versus the former guy in Chad Morris?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, there are some similarities. I think the first thing is what we just talked about there. Just this class is kind of, I keep calling it a geographical oddity. As you remember the movie there, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That's what this class is. I mean, I've never seen kids from Michigan and Ohio and Wisconsin. I think I've seen one from Wisconsin, Jose Valdez, back in the day, but he's the only one I can think of. You've got South Carolina on this list. That's probably, you know, just from a geographical standpoint, probably one of the biggest differences. You know, I would say probably fewer wide receiver offers. I mean, Coach Stepp would get after it, man. He would offer like 80 in one class. I think we've seen that slow down quite a bit, going for quite a bit more size under Sam Pittman, which is to be expected. We know he likes big people, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's been reflected in recruiting, especially on the offensive line so far. Some of these guys they brought in, man, I'm not saying they're going to get all of them, but these are the types that go to Alabama and Georgia. That's what they're supposed to look like. So at least they're getting visits from those type of players.
Can you tell me about Tyrus Washington? He's the tight end that they've gotten to commit out of Georgia. Seems, I mean, he's 3-star. What do you expect out of Tyrus Washington, and what is his ceiling?
You know what, Phil? I actually like this kid quite a bit. I think his offer list was everybody saw the 3 finalists there with Arkansas, Cincinnati, and Central Florida, and they said, oh, great, we beat those 2 schools. Well, he also had some pretty good offers on there. And take nothing away from those two either. I mean, they've won a lot more than Arkansas as of late. I think Central Florida's obviously national champion, as they call themselves, a couple of years ago. And then Cincinnati, they've won 31 games in the last 3 years, so no disrespect there. But this guy also had Nebraska, Ole Miss, Tennessee, South Carolina, Pittsburgh, you name it. On his side of the coast over there, they were coming after him pretty good there. So 6'4", 230, class of 2022, obviously, a 3-star recruit. Tyrus is a big target. I think he's pretty raw, but you take one look at him, I think he's got the potential to come in and possibly, as a true freshman, I think he's got the frame that would probably allow him to step out there and make an immediate contribution at a position of need, too. I mean, you think about going into next year, you're going to lose Blake Kern, right? I think that position group has been pretty low on depth. They're slowly but surely starting to add to that and replenish that depth a little bit. And this one, as long as they can keep him now, and I think they will, I think he goes a long way in helping them fix some things there.
Mm-hmm. Danny, this being obviously the first time Sam Pittman's able to recruit in person, have these guys on campus, what has been his big finale type of moment? Like, I'm coming from the Memphis area. I know at the University of Memphis, they take them over to the Liberty Bowl locker room first and then back to campus for the revealing of the brand new indoor facility, all the big brand new bells and whistles of toys. What has been his big finale pitch to recruits on campus?
I think, I'm sure you have, if you've ever spoken to Sam Pittman, you don't see a whole lot of flash. I think the biggest reveal type moment that you get with a guy like that is just sitting down 101. Before you leave campus, he wants to sit down and speak with you, and that's when he's at his best, man. If you've been around Coach Pittman for any amount of time, you can spend 5 minutes with the guy and walk away feeling like he's your uncle. You know, he's just got that appeal about him, and that's what they try to do on Sunday mornings as the kids get ready to leave town. He'll bring them into the office and sit down and go one-on-one with them for a little bit. So I think that's when he probably tries to close the deal or gets really close anyway.
Danny, I wonder if, and this goes to any sport, I think, now that players, student athletes can transfer one time without having to sit. And we're seeing this with Arkansas basketball. You know how you're getting players to come from mid-major programs like a Stanley Amude from South Dakota or Jalen Tate from Northern Kentucky. And they're going to get their one chance, their 1 year to shine in under the spotlight at Arkansas. And you see the same thing in football too. Do you have a sense that student athletes in their junior, senior years in high school might view offers from mid-major programs of any school differently now that they can also, go to those schools and transfer quickly, with, after a year or two and get a chance to play immediately?
Probably. That's a great point. Great question. Yeah, probably. I would argue it probably happens more in basketball. It seems to me these football guys, man, a lot of times, and, it's not my job to tell them what they should think, but I see it all the time, Phil. Some of these guys, they keep waiting on that Alabama offer when, North Dakota State is probably where they're headed, and they ought to be happy with that. There's nothing wrong with taking that route at all, but and it's so if it works out to where you can eventually, open other opportunities for yourself, then great. But, you bring up a good question there. I haven't heard anyone specifically tell me that they're changing their view on that sort of thing, but certainly something to think about.
Yeah, that is something very interesting to think about, and it kind of ties into what I'm about to ask you about, Danny, the evolvement of college athletics. And, obviously this month the big topic has been NIL. How big of a conversation has that been around recruitment?
I think it's been big. There's been a lot of talk about it for sure. I'm sure the coaches have their own way of trying to relay what information they know because, let's let's face it, guys, it's really early for them too. I think everybody's trying to figure this thing out on the go, and what's okay to do and who's willing to help, that sort of thing. There's a lot going on, but man, I like it, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm never going to be against anybody trying to make a little money, so I've been a fan of it so far. I think the recruits have enjoyed, looking around and saying, hey, what opportunities are there for me at a place like Arkansas? And, of course, you've seen some of the local brands step up. Just today with Devo Davis, probably one of the most popular guys on campus. He's got Guatney Chevrolet and JJ's all of a sudden helping him out a little bit. So good for them. I think you'd be surprised with how quickly word of mouth travels when it comes to players, current players, to recruits. Once a recruit gets on campus, that's going to be one of the first things they ask is, hey, how are you liking it here? And who can help me out a little bit on the side? And are you happy with them as a brand, as a business, that sort of thing? So while it's still early for all of us, there's a lot to figure out. So far, I think a school like Arkansas has a lot of potential in that regard.
Daniel, before we let you go, I'm going to get a basketball thought on two potential incoming players. You get Kevin Obanor, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly again, from ORU. Yep. He's got Arkansas in his final two around Texas Tech. He got one scholarship left. He seems to have a sense of Arkansas after playing against him twice and knows Eric Musselman in that sense as a great opposing coach. And the other is on Kijani Wright, that five-star kid out of Los Angeles who could be part of the 2022 class. I know that he seems to hold Arkansas in very high regard right now.
Yeah. First, I always preface it by saying Curtis covers basketball for us, so he would be much more equipped to answer this for you, but I'll give it my best shot for you, Phil. But things are happening quickly. I know that with Obanor. I think it was 2 days ago he had a top 10. Yesterday he had a top 4. And today it's a top 2. So it's Arkansas and Texas Tech, as you mentioned there. I know enough about him to say this. He's 6'8", 225. He put up 18.7 points and right at 10 rebounds a game last year. And you look at some of these way too early preseason rankings, buddy, like with CBS Sports, I think they've got Arkansas at number 9. You get a guy like this, I think you probably look at some of these rankings are going to have them top 5 going into the year. So you'd be big time to go along with Moody, as you said there, DC Tony, Chris Lights, and, of course, Jackson Robinson. So, yeah, I think this guy would probably put you over the top and into the top 5 discussion going into the season. Johnny Wright, I don't know as much about him. I know he's a big-time 5-star guy. I will get with Curtis and probably have a better answer for you next time around. But he's a 6'9", 215-pound forward out of L.A., I think things are going well there, but I can't really make that prediction. But I don't know where he's going up. He's number 14 in the country, though. So if you can get him, wow.
Yeah, but you're seeing similarities, too, between in the way, I don't know, it's a whole different system, and you're going after a lot different players in terms of numbers.
Yeah.
But, Eric Musselman is recruiting California. He's recruiting everywhere. Sam Pittman is recruiting everywhere, it seems, and Arkansas baseball, women's basketball, they do the same. And we view Arkansas, maybe some view it in a regional, as a regional brand, but as far as I think the way these coaches are viewing it, and maybe differently than other coaches previously, this is a national brand now. Yeah,
and speaking for football, which I deal with more than anything, Sam Pittman, from the day he got here as a head coach, he said, we're going to be a national brand, and I think he's trying to live by that. And at some point, Phil, you kind of have to be, right? With our population of our state, and everybody that Arkansas is trying to go up against in recruiting, you kind of have to branch out a little bit, and so far, so good. All the sports you mentioned there, I think everyone's pretty pleased with how things are going.
Great. I appreciate you coming on, Danny, and it's always good talking with you. We'll be reading you at the. You got it. We'll be reading it at 247sports.com, hogsports.com as well, and always enjoy having Danny on here on Halftime. 877-377-6963 if you want to get with us in the final segment for Get Off My Lawn. You need to get over to Joe's Grill and Cantina because it is Taco Tuesday today. It's for lunch or dinner.
It's
crispy
Taco Tuesday!
Sure is. Crispy tacos are just $1. Pork carnita tacos, $2.25. Brisket tacos, $3.25. It's the same price for the pork belly tacos. Plus, $1 Busch Light drafts, $2.25 Ultra drafts, and Bud Light drafts are just $2.25 all day long at Joe's Grilling Cantina. And, of course, they are right there in Fort Smith across from Harps. We'll wrap things up on halftime after the break.